Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Kalika and this is day 3 of Revenge Week. Today we're doing r/EscalatingRevenge. So you're probably going to be a craftier person after watching this video. Report my Facebook post? I'll indirectly have you fired. So to preface this, I need to clarify that I'm not 100% sure that what I did got this worker fired. I'm pretty sure it was a combination of what I did among other co-workers and this person just generally being bad at their job. We've only been told that the person is no longer at our workplace, not that they were fired or whatever happened. I wasn't sure where else to post, so I figured here would be a good continuation of my r/evil brainstorming. Now you might think, threatening this person's livelihood by getting them fired, isn't that just as bad as them reporting you? I don't know for sure that what I did caused them to leave. They could have lost a laptop or something completely unrelated as far as I know, but please read my other posts in detail that line out why this person was toxic and affecting our team negatively by bringing everyone down and using up people's times because they didn't want to get better at their job. I really do hope this person gets a job that they can do and I wish them no harm, but they just weren't a good fit for this team. Relevant posts, summary and brainstorming, team tech support part 1, 2 and 3. If you don't want to read the previous stories, the TLDR version is that I was reported to HR by a co-worker I once had as a friend over a post that was not work related, not posted during working hours, and wasn't even something I deem offensive. As mentioned in other posts, I work in IT and this person isn't great at their job despite having experience in corporate and having worked for us in the past as a contractor. Now, I'm always willing to help someone willing to help themselves, because I was a rookie myself a few years ago and relied on help from others many times. But it got to a point with them that they'd rely on everyone for help, and if they had problems doing something, they just give up and not even do anything. No critical thinking skills whatsoever. It got exhausting helping this person out, but I still did because pretty much nobody else did, and the customer still needed to be up and running. I didn't feel the need to report that to my supervisors as it wasn't interfering with my workload, and the only thing they were guilty of was ignorance. It wasn't until after I heard through the grapevine that they reported me, that's when my attitude with them completely changed. I spoke with my co-worker who was bothered by her, and he said that our boss already told him to document every time they would ask for help, and to only point them in the direction of documentation or help, and to stop doing anything for them. We decided that I would start doing that as well, and try to get co-workers in as well. And since they just loved asking me for help, this helped fuel the fire without them ever knowing it. My posts from r/Tales from Tech Support have good examples of this person just not being good at tech at all. After a few months of being told the news and nothing happens from it, not even a meeting with my own supervisor, I started to think that they just get away with the report with no consequences and continue to work there. Then one week they weren't there. Everyone around the office talked about how they might just be sick or have unexpected surgery, but I never heard anything official. 1 week turned into 3 weeks of them being out and everyone pretty much forgetting this person. On the following Monday of that 4th week, we receive an email that they're no longer with our workplace. TLDR. A co-worker who I was civil with reported a harmless Facebook post to our HR for no reason. I helped speed up the process in getting them fired as they weren't a good worker and showed no initiative to learn. I received 4 flat tires from a stranger, so I changed their neighbourhood dynamics. I thought this story was good for r/pro revenge, but they don't allow felonies in stories. This might count as a felony. This took place 15 or 20 years ago. I was invited to play poker at a friend of a friend's house. I'd never met the host and never been there before, but I knew most of the people. The house was only a 15-minute walk or a 2-minute drive from my place, but I'd never been on that cul-de-sac before. At about 3 o'clock in the morning, the last of us poured out of the house and into our cars. I felt something was off the moment I sat in my little car, but it didn't register. I was very tired. Everyone else left, and the host house went dark as I let my car warm up. It was very cold outside. When I tried to pull away, I knew something was wrong. My car wasn't moving normally. Having hardly moved from my spot, I stopped and stepped out of my car. That's when I noticed I was too close to the ground. By the moonlight, I could see all my tires were flattened. My car was sitting on the ground. I sat back inside my car to collect my thoughts and keep warm. That's when I noticed writing in the dew in my rear window. It read, F you. I got out and stood over my rear window, reading it in disbelief. I looked around my car for other evidence, but found none. The cul-de-sac was mostly empty, but had been full when all the poker players were there. I reasoned it was a resident who thought they owned the road and didn't like us taking up their spots. This was a Saturday night. We all showed up around 9 o'clock in the evening. It was now 3:20 in the morning. It's a public dead-end road. Not wanting to leave my car in this place where it'd been vandalised, I drove ever so slowly on flat tyres back to my place and parked in my spot. When I got out again, I saw the tyres were destroyed from driving on them. It's possible the perps only let the air out of the valves. If that was the case, I had finished the job off completely destroying them and costing myself hundreds to replace them. After I rested home, I resolved I could not live with this offence, and I reasoned the perp must have been the home I had parked in front of. So I grabbed a pocket knife and hiked back to that neighbourhood. At the house I'd been parked in front of, there were 3 vehicles in the driveway. A car, then a pickup truck that looked like a dirty, well-used work vehicle, then another car that looked like it didn't move. Starting with the pickup truck, I used my pocket knife to flatten all 4 tyres and then the car in front of it. I walked off quickly. I never had a reason to return to that particular piece of road again. Fast forward a week later, I see my friend who rented a room at the poker house. I asked him about parking on his cul-de-sac. He revealed there were neighbours across the road who battled over parking. He said they went at it fairly often over the previous year. Fast forward 2 months later still, I see my friend and again ask about the parking on the road. This time he wants to know why, so I tell him the above story. He says, "Oh, that's why." I asked what happened. He said the street had been silent and there hasn't been any fighting for parking in a couple of months. A year later, my friend said that night must have been the end of it, as he'd never seen or heard fighting again. Oh, so you've got strong political backers? You're still going down. Crosspost from r/ProRevenge. Warning, long story ahead. Writing this now because of recent news. Background. This story takes place in Asia, not the US or any other Western country. My wife, late 20s, is working at a newly set up government branch office of only about 20 people, which by virtue of its nature requires a lot of interaction and support from high-ranking politicians and the grassroots. Most of her colleagues are thus seniors and retirees with a lot of clout in their respective communities and strongly recommended and backed by their areas, sort of equivalent of a mayor to join the office. More background. When my wife just joined, there was this particular guy whom we shall call Jack. Jack was in his 60s, coming out of retirement, and was charismatic as hell. He was the undeniable alpha male in the office and had the respect and support of almost all other colleagues, thanks to him generously buying everyone in the group lunch almost every day. The relatively younger, 30 to 40s ladies even called him Papa Jack or some other endearing term. Even the boss gave him great leeway. Jack could tell off the boss during meetings and the boss would just suck it up. Now at this point, all we knew is that Jack was charismatic AF, one of the pastors of a megachurch even, and had the support of a very high-ranking politician. In fact, Jack was apparently very rich and had no need to work this job but was there due to politics. Also why the boss, who had no political backing, gave him that much leeway. I was in between jobs at this time and helped my wife out at her office from time to time, cultivating a pretty good relationship with her boss. The first time I was at her office, Jack came over with his posse, sized me up by asking me lots of personal questions and made some jokes about me. Immediately it rubbed me the wrong way and he gave me the impression that he was an arrogant prick. However, I gave him the benefit of the doubt as other colleagues were quick to praise him despite his loud mouth. The first time I worked directly with him, however, shattered any illusions I had about his competency. This guy was horribly inept at his work and got away with it all the time. My wife even told me that she was unhappy about how I would make jokes about her or even poke her in the belly or arms and comment on her putting on weight. She, however, still gave him the benefit of the doubt as he mentioned that he saw her as a daughter and perhaps being childish was just part of his joker attitude. The incident. A couple of months later it was Jack's birthday and most of the office except the boss attended after work. My wife got him a gift, as did everyone else, and he thanked her by plying her with expensive wine. Now, my wife is not a good drinker and everyone in the office knew it, but was still pressured into drinking. Towards the end of the party, he offered to drive my wife and some other colleagues staying nearby home. My wife agreed, as it was in a grip and it was way too late and expensive to go by public transport, and her cell phone was dead. However, instead of dropping my wife off first, as her house was the nearest, he ended up dropping everyone else first and drove her somewhere deserted instead of home. He then sexually harassed her, saying that he thought she was sexy, admitted to purposely plying her with alcohol and that he really wanted to touch her. My wife was massively drunk, but thankfully fended off his advances and repeatedly asked to be driven home. Perhaps also driven by her latent unhappiness about the way he treats her at work, she reminded him of his religious work and his being a grandfather, such that he finally gave up and dropped her off somewhere not deserted, whereby she walked home and quickly called me. I rushed over and she related the whole incident, still tipsy AF. I called up a relatively good friend at work whom I thought would be trustworthy, but the spineless fellow advised not to go against Jack and just let it go since nothing happened. Fine, time to plot the revenge myself. The corporate compromise. The next day, I made a big show out of asking her boss out to discuss something. Jack was noticeably on leave, and the rest of the office was also acting oddly. I was surprised that her boss believed me right off the bat, since he said he had spotted Jack leering at young women all the time, and that Jack had a reputation for being a philanderer. Jack was apparently not independently rich too. He was supported generously by his rich wife who turned a blind eye to his side activities. Why? Because she was much younger than him and he had supported her through college with his pay back then. Now that she's successful, she feels that she owes it to him. However, Bossman was apparently scared of the political repercussions from taking actions against Jack, but promised to keep an eye on him and let my wife telecommute to work instead. Still, Bossman had to inform his boss as part of protocol, who totally lost his crap. As an ex-military guy and new to this job, this guy was hungry for blood and hadn't yelled at anyone in years. So Jack was basically called in and interrogated until he admitted to getting her drunk, but maintained that he only wanted to talk to her about the problems they were having at work, with no sexual intention. With no evidence and having a crap ton of political pressure harping on this point, ex-military boss could do nothing about this guy either. So he said we either had to make a police report so that he could act, or accept a half-assed private apology from Jack. Restricted to only what he admitted to. No way in hell was I going to accept that. Ex-military boss came up with some other alternatives, such as transferring my wife out, but she did nothing wrong. But nothing was acceptable to me except totally neutering this guy, fire his ass or destroy his life, such that he would have no way of preying on my wife or the other young women he worked with. Later, I would come to know that Jack had told everyone that my wife was trying to seduce him for his money, but he rejected her. He ruined her reputation to save himself, and the bosses couldn't do crap about it. Nobody sullies my wife's reputation and gets away with it. The Revenge Part 1. Social Isolation. I knew where my revenge would hit him the hardest. His pride. I countered, demanding that Jack make a public apology in the office for what happened that night. As promised, he would not be obliged to apologise for anything he did not admit to, including sexual harassment. In fact, I told him that he could just apologise without any reason given. I didn't need one. Jack tried to weasel his way out of this, but even his backer couldn't deny such a simple, reasonable request. And apologise he did. Thanks to his own pre-poisoning of the well of public opinion, most of the office saw through his lies. Why would he be forced to apologise if he did nothing wrong? What was he even apologising for? Why can't it be said outright? Immediately after, the office was split. Half-sided with my wife, while half stuck with their beloved Papa Jack who could do no wrong. The mutters and gossip against him grew steadily though, as his background and past philandering reputation started leaking out. I might have been part of these leaks, who knows? In the end, the cognitive dissonance and or their willingness to be associated with a pervert for free lunches lost out to public opinion. Soon, Jack found himself increasingly isolated and eating lunch with only his work partner. The alpha male was neutered. Nobody took his bragging seriously. He had no pack of fans anymore. Nobody was picking up the slack of his incompetent work except his partner, who was backed by the same politician. The Revenge Part 2. Spectacular Career End. I spoke to Jack during one of his lonely lunches, telling him he had only one choice, to resign quietly. I knew this would hurt Jack's pride the most, pissing him off, so Jack did not go quietly. He set about messing up the office, shredding important documents, damaging equipment, etc. I went straight to his partner and told him that there were documents missing, and having covered for him, he would be liable for any sabotage in the upcoming audit. His partner tried to pin it on me, but I had already extracted and backed up the security tapes showing Jack shredding the documents literally behind his partner's back. His partner, now burdened with Jack's mess and about to get audited, thanks to me whispering in Bossman's ear, had to rat Jack out to the politician to save himself. The politician quickly distanced himself publicly from Jack and more than likely told him to hand in his resignation before the audit. Jack was now entirely cut off. No job, no political backer, no friends at work. The only thing he had now was his wife, kids, and grassroots community reputation. Was I done? Not by a long shot. The Revenge Part 3. Stealing his wallet. I knew his wife would not care about Jack's philandering ways, and his kids probably already knew anyway. However, the wife would be concerned if he was spending her money all willy-nilly. I volunteered to send the usual office goodbye card to Jack, but mistakenly addressed it to his wife. Oops, careless me. Most colleagues adding generic messages such as all the best to it, but I added an anonymous message telling him how we missed the lavish meals and parties we had with him before his retirement and all the good times, while also stating how all the ladies missed their papa. Never heard any news about him for months, so I assumed the wife had ignored the message. Until yesterday. The Revenge Part 4. Goodbye, reputation. Opened the papers to see that dear Papa Jack was imprisoned for a year due to some minor offence. Dug deeper and found out that Jack did indeed have his allowance cut by his wife. Unable to sustain his lavish lifestyle, he turned to crime. I found out from the grapevine that he had actually done some pretty major stuff, but somehow managed to get it down to a minor offence, barely footnoted in the papers. Perhaps by the politician not wanting to be associated negatively with a former right-hand person. Was I done? Yeah, I suppose this would do for now. Okay, so that's all for r/EscalatingRevenge. I really hope you enjoyed day 3 of Revenge Week and you stick around as well, as it's only going to get better. As always, if you do want to see more content like this, then please do subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!